Okay, maybe just to kill time while we're waiting for 7 p.m. to begin, I'll show you what I've been working on. I'm actually taking a figure drawing class myself, and I'm just trying to get a refresher at it. And these are some of my first attempts right here, and I was really struggling with a lot of these, especially consistency. If you look down here, this guy is pretty terrible. Heavy, too heavy line work. Torso elongation. This guy up here just kind of feels weird and static, and this guy has motion, but again, the torso feels too long, and maybe it's too narrow. There's just like something uncomfortable about it, and so I just kind of beat my head against a wall. I tried like this one pose over and over again, trying to get the torso and shoulder placement right. Um, just really couldn't do it for a while, and I'm still not satisfied with where it wound up. I think there's still more work to do. And then I've been having fun, just in my warm ups instead of like doing serious like studies or whatever. I'll do some like messing around with martial arts poses, um, like looking at you know kung fu movies I collected from my friends doing kung fu, and like kung fu films and things, and just kind of getting ideas from there and filling them out. Then here's some stuff like continuing to work on all of these ideas. Um, Actually, I thought this guy turned out okay. Let me pull that down where you can see. Um, I feel like this was one of the better ones that I did in terms of like warming up and establishing a baseline for this class. And what's cool about doing classes is you learn other like ways that other people approach things, which I think is always valuable. Um, did some more warm ups down here. They're kind of fun. Um, Doing like fight poses is kind of cool because you can explore energy and curves in a way that you can't normally. Um, Again, I'm just working through these poses. This is that same pose I've been working. Just totally botched ahead here, went back over it, and um, then I tried that pose again and did a better job of it. Let me go through there. This pose I think turned out a lot better. Um, then I did some okay stuff like down here in the corner with this guy right here. The construction is just a lot better. The head size is better. Um, I was um, like doing some studies after Rod Guinadin and seeing how efficient he was because he doesn't use that many lines and gets really cool stuff done with the poses. More martial arts poses. And here you can see the faint 10% grade marker. Just this is one of the better back studies I did, but there's like overemphasis in certain places. Um, and then here I was kind of studying. I was studying torsos, but then putting a head on there, and the head just like seemed really terrible. This was a better attempt at it, I think, but the torso is still a little too long. Just kept working on torsos, because I had got so frustrated with them, and you know these are some stuff I've been working on in the past couple of days. Um, and this is where things kind of felt like they were getting a little bit better. I switched up the process a little bit, the order of operations really. Just starting with a like loose torso shape and then working inward from there a little bit. And that kind of freed me up to do different stuff that had more energy and more character to it. And that's kind of where that ended up. And with these things, and I think these are significantly better in many ways. So um, we'll get to the actual content of the stream uh, right now since it's 7. I just wanted you to know that even though I'm teaching you all this stuff, I'm still trying to learn too, and I'm still trying to improve, and it's okay to struggle, and the thing is eventually you get through it and you get better, and that's just kind of like how drawing and I guess life go too. Um, so I figured we would, do whatever questions, cover whatever questions you guys had, and then, but I wanted to start with just, some objects, because objects are one of those things that everybody needs to draw at some point. They're readily available in your house if you need something to draw. And I kind of have been experimenting with simple ways to do this, and been simplifying the process for my students so they could draw objects easier. So box forms are always important to draw, and the way I've been thinking about this is a 3-step process. So, your first step is the shape. Your second step is form. And then your third step is tailor it. For the sake of clarity, we'll probably do shape, form, and tailoring on 3 separate layers, but then I'll show you kind of how they stack up too. So for the Rubik's Cube, your shape is just a square. That's literally it. It's extremely, extremely simple. That's it. That's all a Rubik's Cube is. You're just drawing it shape-wise. Then, you want to take that Rubik's Cube and then convert that to form. Let's see if I can switch up the image. There. So when we convert that into form, we have to take into account some other stuff. So here we have to do its generic form. And you'll notice in the reference that the cube is kind of going down in space like that in this sort of 3-point perspective effect. And that's all fine and dandy, to create this 3-point perspective thing. But for basics, I would want you to stay away from that if you're just beginning to draw objects. Instead, what you're going to do is just take this shape and you're going to convert it to form. You can look at your reference. You can see that if you're showing a little bit more of the right side than the left. So you're going to take a triangle and connect it out that direction. Another triangle, connect it out that direction. You don't have to complete the triangle either. You're going to cut it off, triangle to meet, triangle to meet, and you have a basic form, right? And this is kind of how you can begin to invent objects. You can draw the shape, convert to form, and when you do that, things are pretty simple. So yeah, welcome to the channel. Michael just tuned in. I'm doing well. I'm just hoping that the rest of the country does, and that everybody out in the Reddit community is doing well. And I worry sometimes that things will get bad, but I hope that they don't. So the next stage is to take your converted form and to start to tailor it. And when you do that, you want to draw softly. So I'm going to draw this cube kind of softly. Cut it off. Make it go in a triangle. So you don't need to be too wireframey. You don't necessarily have to go through and subdivide everything and show the back unless you're having trouble. If you're having trouble, then maybe yeah. Next, what you want to do is remember that when you turn a plane in perspective, its center is always just a little bit behind that side. So your front side is big, your back side is small, and you can do an X method subdivision to just confirm where that is by going corner to corner, and that's all valid. But we're dividing in thirds, so what we need to do is basically take our plane and we need to go big, medium, and small. So we want to make sure that when we subdivide, we get a wide one, a less wide one, and an even less wide one. So in this sketch, I'll have to put that one here and here. And that's going to help us put everything into perspective correctly. So we can go into our Rubik's Cube and start sketching in. There we go. And then all we have to do for the verticals is make them vertical, and then the ones that fan, we just go in between the triangles and subdivide along the triangles. Boom. Boom. We've established it here, so then we know where to begin over here. Okay, so we've subdivided based on thirds. It's a little bit strange to subdivide on thirds. It just feels really weird. The next thing you can do to kind of tailor your Rubik's Cube, you don't have to do anything with color or value necessarily to tailor all this stuff, is you want to round the edges. So you're going to round, 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 round. So you're going to go work your way around this whole thing, just kind of rounding everything out. Round it, round it, round it all. Round and round we go, I guess. So there. So we've now got our cube that has little rounded bits. And then if we want to get really specific, we can start to round out the individual cubes. And I probably won't do every one for the demo because that would get kind of tedious, but you can move through it pretty quickly, right? Boom. There we go. So you can see how this is starting to look more and more Rubik's Cube-ish as we start to add in details, right? Just rounding out. And one of the things you do when you round out this stuff is you're starting to change the outer contour. So your outer contour is going from this and into this. So round, down, round, round, down, round, round, down, round. So your edge is starting to change, and that outer edge gives you a lot of character in your objects because you're changing up the silhouette. Sharpening up a bit, and then we can emphasize that silhouette even more if we want. And I'm kind of drawing super dark for clarity so that you can kind of see what's happening. Round it, round it, round it, and so on. So that's more tailored, right? And then you can come inside this area, and then you can put in the stickers and just round and follow, round, follow, follow, round, boom. And now it's really looking like a Rubik's Cube, right? Then you can bump up the line weight in between. You can use a little bit of shadow areas to remind yourself that it is a Rubik's Cube and that there's these individual parts that all interlock together, and so on. So there you go. So here you have your basic process of tailoring after building the shape and form language. And when it's simple, it's fairly easy. When it's complicated, it's a little more difficult. But nothing that you won't necessarily be able to handle. So let's move on. Let's do another object. And if at any time you want to do something differently, just let me know, and we will go through whatever questions that you have. Spheres are kind of cool. We can do a simple sphere. I don't necessarily want to like render a sphere, but we can look at this one. And this ball is kind of cool because it has these little stitches on it, and it gives us some lines that we can wrap. So our basic shape is the circle, and that is also our basic form. So our, if we look at this closer though, our basic form has our basic shape has these little subdivisions on it, right? Like that. And then we can go through and we can, so basically we've already converted this to form by following those subdivisions because we've wrapped lines around it. It now looks like it has form instead of shape. So it's no longer flat. So when we tailor this, we understand that it's probably not a perfect sphere, so you don't have to draw a perfect sphere, right? you can draw a slightly wonky sphere. Your top, and I like to give a little point where the top is not on the outer edge. It's slightly in front. So that allows us an opportunity to wrap lines and have them just kind of disappear around the outer edge, which is kind of fun. And then that line is just going to continue across them to the other side. And then we've got another one that kind of comes down more towards the front and disappears and goes and disappears on the other side. And then we have another subdivision that goes this way and disappears. So we have our subdivisions all kind of like laid out now. Then if we want to give it a little bit of character, we can make them kind of pop out from each other a little bit. So the subdivisions kind of get a little pumpkin-y. And then that gives the ball a little bit of character and flavor that we didn't have before. Then we can bump up line weight. And bumping up line weight is kind of fun because we can imply a certain amount of depth that we couldn't before. So what I'm doing is taking this is the division that's kind of closest to me and coming most forward. So I'm bumping that up and making it super dark. Then I can make this one dark, but not quite as dark. And this one I can bump up slightly, and I can let the background just kind of fade. So that's a quick way to run through and get an object its character like really quickly. And to draw objects, you just need to know your basic forms. You need to know your box form. Box form is your most powerful form. You got to know your sphere, which you have to light or wrap lines around to make it actually dimensional. You have to know the cone, which is a triangle that you've just modified. You need to know the cylinder, which is actually just a rectangle modified. You need to know your prismatic form, which is your tent or top of a house. You need to know your pyramidal form, which, like the pyramid at Giza, it's pretty easy, comes in handy sometimes. And Will Weston added the ribbon form, which is this sort of often S-curvy form. Not so much a form necessarily as a curvy plane, but it's super useful, and you wind up using it a bunch, whether you want to or not. So it's better just to know what it is. How to draw a 3D teddy bear. I think that's a darn good one. Cool, we can do that. I'm kind of psyched for teddy bears. Let me flip the page. Wait, it says the question is how to draw a teddy beard. Is it a beard or a bear, or a bear with a beard? Because we can do both. So at its core, if you want to draw a teddy bear, and I'll just kind of make this up because I don't necessarily have a reference for a teddy bear. Your generic teddy bear is a head, and the head's a sphere, right? And you have no neck usually, and you just have a big sphere for the body, right? And that is your generic teddy bear. So we like the idea of the teddy bear having a beard. We'll do a teddy bear with a beard because I think that's fantastic. So your teddy bear starts out that way. It's up to you to design your proportions of the teddy bear. Right here we have, it's a one head, like a 3 head high teddy bear. You could do one that's that the head is a little bit bigger with respect to the body. It could be like, a two-head size teddy bear. It just depends on what you want. So, you know, but we want to get to the meat of this teddy bear, which is its component forms. So obviously the teddy bear needs ears, right? So your ears are basically part of a cone, right? So if you can imagine a cone drawn like this, right? And then if you imagine a cone kind of drawn the other way, where we draw an ellipse, we do a cone. What if we slice that cone some, and we do something like this, and then we give it shadows inside and say, well, this is an ear. Give it some hair. That's exactly what we're going to do with the teddy bear. We're just going to say, well, one ear sits here, the other ear sits here, and the ears come out like that. Boom. There. Now the teddy bear has ears. We can go inside and echo that form again to make it more teddy bearish. And, a true teddy bear will have fuzz, so we can work that transition with some fuzz. And then the outer ear will have some fuzz too. So we can break that up just a little bit in a few places to remind you that it's fuzzy. There you go. Then your teddy bear is going to have usually some kind of nose, mouth thing. And it's almost always a slightly rounded triangle. The nose is also a slightly rounded triangle, and they usually get a flat mouth. They get eyes, and the eye is a sphere. Right now it's just a circle. As soon as we wrap lines around the eyes inside that circle, it now becomes dimensional, right? Then to give the teddy bear a front, he needs a belly. So we do this to give the teddy bear a belly, right? All of a sudden now he has a belly, and we can subdivide the teddy bear, make it look like he's got some forms going on. We're going to come back for the beard later. I haven't forgotten about the beard. So then he needs to be able to hug you, so he needs arms, right? So you're going to basically take a armhole and build out some teddy bear arms. And they should want to envelop you, right? And they need the little paw things on them. And it can have an arbitrary number of little paw things. Then he needs legs, because he needs to be able to sit. The leg holes will be a little bit bigger. We'll pull the legs out. Now he's starting to look like a teddy bear. Then, to give him a beard, well, he needs a mustache that comes across, right? So he needs a little teddy bear beard mustache. We give the mustache some wrapping lines to remember that it's a form. And then we wrap the beard up behind his ears. We give the beard an overall beard shape. We're going to have a super hipster teddy bear here in a second, which is super fun. Let me sharpen. So, now we're at the stage where the teddy bear pretty much has a nice little beard going. And to give the beard some volume, we can add our ribbon forms and design a few ribbons. We can let a few beard hairs fly out. We can break up the contour a little bit. Now he's a teddy beard. It's sort of ridiculous, right? But this is a cool exercise in form that, I like it. Improvise a teddy bear to your own design. Now, the thing that I didn't talk about is, yeah, this is the turtle teddy bear who's joined a biker gang, right? Um, exactly. Uh, Teddy bear with a good story. The other thing that you can do is you can take your object or your character and squash it into a particular shape. So if I want this teddy bear to be, my true biker teddy bear, I need to give him put him inside a triangle, right? So I can take a big triangle, and I can make my teddy bear more menacing by compressing him into this shape, because triangles are pointy and mean, right? So we go head, body, armholes, leg holes, right? The legs are going to come out to the edge here. The arms are going to have to change their shape because they got to stay within this triangle, right? And the ears have to kind of change. And then the beard's over here. So now he looks a little bit different. He doesn't look like he's going to hug you. He looks like he's going to stand off to you. So, yeah. This is just something to think about too, is just, when you design a character, you can squash them into the shape, and that gives them like a certain amount of a certain feel to them. And I was doing that the other day, trying to think of an assignment for my Drawing 2 class. I can show you kind of in a more developed sense what that looks like if I flip back a few pages. So here I was just playing with this sort of like, rodent-y rat thing. And, the first one I kind of just designed on basic circles. This one I designed on like angles. And then, this bottom guy, I combined the kind of two things. So I gave him an overall big triangle and then used the circles. And he became a much more characteristic and menacing little weird rat thing after that. So this is kind of like, if you look at the difference between these two, you can see a huge amount that overall shape gave to it. And that overall shape is kind of one of your most powerful tools for design, because that's gonna define what your character kind of looks like in the end. So yeah, the teddy beard. Any other questions before we move on to a different object? I'm just flipping through some objects that we could do. We did. Let's do a coffee mug, because coffee mugs are tough. Everybody has trouble with coffee mugs because the handle, and everybody has trouble with the handles, and I think we can tackle that, because that's an important one to kind of go over. Okay, so coffee mugs. The essence of the coffee mug is the kind of close to square rectangle, right? This is, if you look straight on in a coffee mug, this is its basic shape. Move so you can see that, and then it'll have a handle coming off of it. and the shape of the handle just depends on the coffee cup that you want to design or draw, right? So this is the shape of your basic coffee cup. Maybe there's a little bit of depth to the handle. Start thinking about how that coffee cup gets connected. Then, at its very basic, all we have to do is convert that to form, right? And we can actually take this exact same coffee mug rectangle, draw the full rectangle, and then we're set up to draw ellipses. So we draw our ellipse at the top, and we draw half of the exact same ellipse at the bottom. Then we can complete it with our handle shape. And we have a coffee mug that's converted to form, except we kind of cheated it because we did the shape handle and we put it on the form, and that doesn't really work too well. So what we need to do is place that handle somewhere within this confines of the coffee mug. So what I like to do is decide where the top and bottom go of the handle, make that kind of parallel to the nearest bit of the ellipse at the top and bottom. And then what I can do is I can say, well, I'm looking down on this, so my handle is going to come out. And I just created a tangent. That's really bad. I'm going to bring that in then. I'm going to connect down. Then we're going to come out from here, run parallel, and come down there. Adjust if I need to. Then I'm going to give it a side. And I've connected my handle on there. So now my coffee mug has a handle. And, you know, doing some practice with this handle kind of thing is always worthwhile. We'll take a crack at this cool coffee mug that my coworker made, and we'll see what we can do about creating a more tailored handle that's closer to this particular reference photo. So our design of this shape is more or less within a standard coffee cup rectangle. And then it's subdivided here and in the center. Then it's designed based on triangles. So it has a triangle that pinches inward, and then a triangle that comes down and gets cut off for the base. So this is our shape for this particular coffee mug is more like this. And then it has a connection, and it comes down more or less to the bottom here. So this is our vague coffee mug design. And you want to keep track of where these subdivisions are, because that's going to help you and give you ellipses to wrap around. So when you go to convert that to form, you're going to draw your triangle, or part of your triangle, give it an ellipse at the top and at the bottom, pull your triangle out, draw your ellipse at the bottom, put your base in, draw your ellipse, and then the last job we have to do is to add this bit of a handle. And so we can kind of see a lot at the top of the handle, and it comes out, down, and loops back, out, down, and loops back in there. And it's got a rounded side and connects back in right here. So we get our coffee mug form that we've just sort of loosely based on this reference. The cool thing about working with references is that you don't have to stick close to it. You can make changes as long as your form is internally consistent, then you're good. So that's it. simple coffee mug. Um, hands are another thing. Um, when you draw hands, are you trying to draw hands big or are you trying to draw hands small? Because they're a little bit different if you approach them big versus small. Let me see if I can grab a reference photo for that. Don't know that I have a hand reference that I can go to, but I can try. I often go to Reddit Gets Drawn for references. This one's got a good hand. We've got a reference. There we go. Okay, so that's a hand that we can use as a reference. A hand's just another object. Everybody gets intimidated by hands, understandably, because they're kind of complex. They have a lot of bones in there. But when you simplify it, that's kind of the best way to go. What I like to do is separate them into two basic parts and kind of subdivide from there. So basic part of the hand is the top of the hand, right? And we can use my hand for a little bit of analysis. So I use basically this shape right here as the hand. You always want to give the hand a side if you can do that. And then I like to use this part of the hand to give that some character depending on where the hand or how the hand is posed. So we can, our generic hand is kind of a little bit arced at the knuckles, right? One of the cool things about the hand is that it can be straight or it can be bent and curved, right? So you can actually pull your hand in and you can get a curve out of it, and that's that creates problems for drawing. Like if it were always straight, and always perfect, you would just draw it straight all the time, but it can bend. So what we're going to do is just exaggerate that bend. And then we're going to go back and arc it and draw a hand kind of like that. So this is like the front of the hand. To increase the dimensionality of the hand, we just use some simple overlap tricks. Excuse me. And give it some sides. We're going to ignore the fingers for now. What we can do is we can say, well, the fingers are going to be somewhere right here later, and we can like put finger holes on here if you want. I used to do this a lot in school, just because I kind of wanted to understand the form of the hand itself rather than getting distracted by fingers. Then what I can do is I can say, well, I know the thumb's going to be over here, right? And that it's going to go back over here somewhere. And it's going to be behind the hand, right? So I want to be sure that the hand sits in front. And then, since I've got my edge of the top of the hand, if I include just a little bit of the side of the hand, a little bit of the meat there, then I can get a little bit more character out of the hand. I know that I have this bone right here by my pinky that's real pronounced on most people, and that's a really good landmark to draw. So I can say, well, I know that bone right there on my wrist is going to go right there by the pinky, and the wrist is going to go over there. So that's my basic hand. I think you can draw that. And if you keep reminding yourself, hand is just boom, boom, and then the thumb, you can do this sort of thing, and that works. Depending on the hand pose, I also do sort of a five-sided thing like that, and then you can pose the fingers based off of that, right? Give it a cartoon hand like that. If you separate out the actual thumb, you can do that as well. Let's see here. Let's get some more hand references if I can. Yeah, this one has a couple of hands. This one's cool. You can work with this reference. So yeah, this guy's got a hand that's kind of posed and coming towards you, and one that's going in the pocket. The one going in the pocket's pretty easy, right? You go boom, boom, boom. There we go. Then we got thumb coming out. Thumb. And then we have the hint of knuckles, and then we have the pocket that comes around and tucks in and continues up through here, right? So that one's super easy. Can we get a JoJo hand? What is a JoJo hand? I don't know. Tell me what a JoJo hand is, and we can work on it. Then for the palm hand that's coming towards you in the top here, you know, that hand is basically, we're just gonna go boom, boom, right? This hand's kind of like offering things to us. And the thumb is gonna come out in front here, right? And then the finger is gonna come out this way. Then you give it a fingernail, and it's very thummy, right? Then you can go through and start to stack out your fingers. Wrap lines over the fingers. Suddenly you've got a full hand kind of developing. And there it is, right? Then you just tailor the shape to the kind of hand that you want. And you've got a hand, right? Connected to a wrist, and you're even better off. So, oh, like a real thick hand. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thickness of the hand, you know, that's a really good question. I think it just kind of depends on the person and what you want to create. But what you do is you start with the thin hand and you build to the thick hand, which actually shouldn't be like super tough to do. So we can take this guy. He's got a cool hand. Zoom in on his hand here, because his hand's already kind of big, but we can do like a super big hand if you want. Let me flip to a new page so we have room, because we'll draw a big hand, and that'll be funnier. Okay, so remember when you're working from reference, that's just a reference. Don't worry about it. So here, hand. Generic hand shape is this guy right here. I'm just going to draw the top of the hand, right? I'm not going to draw the side yet, because I'm just doing shape. Okay, so that represents kind of the top of the hand. Then we can do side of the hand, right? You know, we know that the wrist is going to come in here. Wrist is kind of boxy. So I'm going to put the wrist in over there. Okay, so we've already got our basic hand. We need our thumb coming up out here, right? Thumb's going to go over here. Okay, then we got knuckles. Lining over there. And we can sketch out some fingers, right? Okay. So we can do these kind of cartoony, and doing them cartoony is kind of fun. Now, what you wanted to do is make a big hand, right? And so what we need to do is build on top of this in order to make it thick. So we've got our skinny hand. We need to make a big hand. What's a big hand do? You do your hand, which is this sort of thing, and the hand gets big, right? It does this. It gets large, right? We can go even, even bigger if we wanted to and make it just this ridiculous like ogre hand, right? So what we need to do is start to widen this out. Say, well, this hand's like a big hand, right? You can use your own hand for reference and kind of like give it a bigger heel of the palm here. And then, on a big hand, my hand's real like kind of thin and skinny, and you can see like every little tendon in there. But on a big hand, you're not gonna be able to do that, right? So we're gonna go like this. We're gonna give the front of that hand like a lot of meat. We're gonna run over that. We're gonna change the contour of the back hand, make it real large, and then here we are going to do some twist action like we got in our reference photo. Make it seem like this is a big giant hand, and then we're going to subdivide a couple of times, but we're going to go with like cartoon sausage fingers, right? Just a big hand. Okay, so we basically just, widened things out. That's just how you do a big hand, right? So you take, it's this basic idea that you can do your hand like regular, you can do your hand skinny, and you can do your hand like bulging. And it just depends on what overall shape you want to give that hand, right? The closed hand from the side, do you mean this side where you see the thumb, or this side where you see that hand? So I assume you're talking about fists, right? So thumb side or pinky side? It's a good question. I mean, we can do both. Not a big deal. I think some of the coolest opportunities for poses are things like this, where the finger spreads. This one you see all the time. That one's an easy hand to draw because you just do this, and you have a hand, right? And you can separate out your thumb because it's going out that way. This is kind of like how I've been doing it for when I have to draw the hand small. Just kind of separating it out, and that kind of already indicates the finger and the energy and the whole pose. The thumb side, remember, what we're doing, like, let's stick the thumb on the hand so you can look at it there. So pretend the thumb doesn't exist. And what's happening is you're taking that thumb shape and you're stacking it on top of a basically static hand shape. So the basically static hand shape is more or less a simple rectangle, right? And then you're taking the thumb and you're stacking it on top, right? And there's this little webbing, right? So look at where the attachment is. It's not at the end of the rectangle completely, right? It's a little bit before. So the thumb kind of attaches basically on here. And so your thumb shape can come out and attach with its webbing kind of like that. And the thumb gets built out. Okay, and your fingers get built out from there. So think about that sort of thing when you're building these out, right? And your thumb kind of goes over that, right? Because if you look at the attachment, like where is that going? It's attaching basically right here, and just chilling right over there, and then the webbing kind of connects it, right? You make it a little more organic, and it starts to look really handy, right? So then when you close the hand, that shape doesn't really change. So you take your basic hand shape, draw it kind of soft and light, figure out about where that thumb's gonna go, draw the thumb shape over, connect with webbing, right? The webbing's gonna go right there. The webbing basically connects to that first knuckle of the thumb right there. And then when you close it, your finger actually, the joint is like kind of right here. So your finger comes out this way, right? And you make this kind of square thing happen. Okay, see that happening right there? We're making basically like this sort of boxy thing. Okay. And then the thumb goes over it, right? So there we have our basic hand form. And you add some details and you can kind of make it look more accurate to an actual hand, right? Make some curves out of it and you're good to go. So that's kind of your breakdown of the thumb side hand. You're still using these basic shapes. You're still going this thumb, right, out to the side. What you're doing is you're just tilting it and you're going this thumb, right, and just connecting it in. And then you're closing it by just doing that, right, and sticking that thumb out over. So I always think, just simplifying this down, understanding where the connections are. That's gonna like kind of drive you to the correct places, and using yourself for reference is always good because you can say, well, what's the generic shape of my hand? Like, how does it bend? Where does the axis happen? It's like looking at that hand shape from the side. I think a common mistake would be like when you close the hand to then build out your fingers out here and then try to close them. But the finger joint's right here, right? It's inside that. So your knuckle is right here. Your fingers go this way and they close more or less like that. And then your thumb gets overlaid, right? So I think part of it too is understanding the understructure and then understanding the thumb is a separate thing and then stacking it all together, right? I think that's a pretty powerful approach to it. We've already burned through almost an hour, so this is pretty awesome. What else do you guys want to know about? Hit me up with more questions. This is interesting. You're leading this to a whole different area than I expected today. Did not expect to draw a teddy bear. I don't think I've ever drawn a teddy bear, actually. I guess that's, my fault for being totally unprepared, but just never occurred to me. see here. And look through some different references and talk through a couple of things probably. Like muscles. Yeah, sure. I mean, we can do some muscle structure stuff. Are you wanting to do like large muscles on the like the male torso? Because we can kind of build on that. Can actually use this guy. Actually has clothes, but it would actually be a pretty cool muscle reference. When you're talking about muscle, I assume you're talking about basically the torso. So the biggest thing about the torso is muscular torso is the shape, right? You know, this right here is like me. That's not a particularly muscular torso. You know, this is your guy who doesn't really work out kind of torso. And your strong guy is kind of like that, right? So your torso has to fit that basic overall shape, right? And I think that overall shape is going to convey a lot about it, right? You put a head on it, and you give it like a super wide neck, and all of a sudden you've got your strong man, right? Not too difficult to convey that without even actually drawing any muscles. You know, you want the Hulk, you do this, right? You give him like teeny little hips. So this right here is Bruce Banner converted into a shape, right? That's the Hulk. And that shape language is really important in conveying muscularity, right? Because it's overall mass that you're talking about. So what we can do is draw a generic torso shape. We can say, well, it's not very interesting to do a torso kind of like straight up and down, but that can kind of map everything out. We can divide it up in the center. We can put the hips in, put the rib cage in. So all of this has to be built around a loose structure, right? So we're gonna put some landmarks in for the hips and the pubic bone and the top of the rib cage, and then we're gonna go for the pit of the neck, and then I like to use an S-curve out to define where the collarbones are. Boom. So now I know kind of like what my overall shape is going to be like. Then knowing some muscle anatomy is going to help. The abs obviously make somebody look strong. So your abs kind of slide in a bit under the edge of the rib cage, and they're actually one big muscle, and they go basically all the way down to just above the pubic bone. Usually there's a small fat pad that you see right down here that takes you down to the pubic bone. So cutting the abs off there is usually a good spot. Then you've got like a belly button usually here. Just above the belly button you'll usually see, like on super strong guys, a division of muscles right there. Then your 8-pack kind of comes in like that. Okay? Super over-exaggerated. One of the most important muscles is actually going to be the obliques. And they come from, or they wrap around the side behind, and you'll see this line that curves around, comes down to the pubic bone and above the actual hip bone. Okay. The legs are going to come in down here, right? big stocky legs. Then above that, you've got your pecs. They kind of come in like this weird little bird-shaped thing. Then you have your serratus muscles, or serrated muscles. They look like a saw, the way they connect. They kind of go like, kind of step out like this. So you can leave those in or out, it doesn't really matter. And then here you're drawing bone, basically, for this little bit of the contour. And then here you have your lats, which are wings. I think literally that's what it means in Latin. The pec muscles actually end right here. So usually you see a division right here. And then the attachments actually cross each other. So like on here, the pecs go this way and attach, and go this way and attach. And these attachments actually go into the arm. So your arm's out here, right? And so it has this sort of X attachment because the pecs actually help move the arm as well. Then your arm sits in here, right? And give that a generic arm shape. There's a gap here, and your deltoid muscle comes. You'll see the peak of the clavicle a lot of times hit on the deltoid and create this little flat shape. And then the deltoid comes out over and then connects onto the front of the arm. That's a big part of it. You'll see the muscles on the arm kind of overlap each other like that. Biceps and triceps and so on. And you'll see basically the lats go behind, the arms go there, and then sometimes you'll see a connection to the pec that overlaps in front of the arm there, and the arm just kind of connects in there. So for super strong people, the pecs leave a little gap here, and then a lot of times you'll see this little triangle where you just see bone right here. Then for people that have like super overdeveloped pecs, you'll see an actual sunglasses shape kind of emerge, because you'll see the divisions in the submuscles go across the pecs like that. So yeah, I mean, that's your basic muscle structure, right? Then your muscles go there, and then your head comes in here. And then to kind of cap it off, you need big trapezius muscles, right? Trapezius muscles actually connect right here on the clavicle, on this back third. So this section right here is where the traps connect, and the trapezius muscle is called trapezius because it is literally just a trapezoid. It kind of creates this diamond shape, and it has like little wings that go out if you look out on the back. So you can see them on the front, and what they do is they kind of arc in, bulge out, and come down and connect right along the tip of the clavicle, right? And on super strong people, you can see that connection kind of come out here too. Not a common thing to actually see on actual people though. And if you want someone to look like, stupid strong, then you give them like super big comic book trapezius muscles that go out there and actually like change the shape in a huge way. So yeah, I mean, that's your basic like torso stuff. If you want leg muscles, that's we can get into that too. The leg muscles they're kind of fun. Your main muscle that divides up the leg in two goes from right here under the front of the pelvis bone, like right there, and comes down, wraps around, and hits the knee. From the pubic bone, this muscle comes out and arcs and connects into a silhouette. Then this guy, you'll kind of see become part of the quads, right? Your knee kind of comes in here. Then you'll see behind all this, you'll usually see a little bit of the glutes coming in, and you'll see a huge muscle here on really strong guys. Then one of the tricks that I like to do is wrap this and wrap that into the knee, and use this same line to go all the way from the top here down, and use that for the actual shin bone. You can give yourself a patella there, a little kneecap, and then you can start layering in some leg muscles, right? On this side you'll see like a flat part of the shin right here, and the muscle will come in behind it, right? You can wrap lines around that to remind yourself. And this is your part of the shin. And there, you're going down into the lower muscle structures. So I mean, that's your basic strongman structure. And then you can come out here and you can give the abs a little bit more depth along the sides. You know, sometimes this is really sunken in muscular people. So, yeah, I think we've gone pretty much to our hour. And if there's no other questions, I think we can wrap it up there and pick up with other stuff next week. And as always, I appreciate you watching. Feel free to support the Patreon. That's linked in the channel description, and linked all over the channel. And with that, you get some more like pointed feedback and some materials that I put together in terms of instruction and stuff. So that's it for the stream, and thank you all for all of your time.